I've read that.
My book is Scat by Carl Hyacin. Sorry. It is realistic fiction, and some of the characters are Mrs. Stark. She is one of the main characters, and she's a teacher at Truman School, which is a private school, and she is one of the meanest biology teachers the school has ever seen. The next character is Dwayne, or Smoke, and that's what everybody calls him. He's kind of the big bully in it, but it turns out that he really does actually care about something. Nick is what the story's kind of based off of his perspective of things, and he's kind of the main character. And Marta is one of Nick's best friends. Jamie Lee Bayless and Jerry McBride are two of the oil companies, like, kind of president, and they are like co-owners of Red Diamond Energy Corporation, and they're drilling in Section 22, which in the Black Vine Swamp, which is illegal. And Twilly is who Nick and Martin meet about halfway through the story, and the Baby Panther obviously is Baby Panther. The settings are the Black Vine Swamp, which the class takes a field trip to, and Truman School, which is where all the kids and Mrs. Stark teaches. In Mrs. Stark's house, it's a very small part of the book takes place there, but a very important part of the book takes place there. This book is about a teacher that goes missing because the school goes on a field trip to the Black Vine Swamp, and she has to go back to get something, and she ends up not coming out. And two kids go looking for her at her house, and they meet Twilly, and he kind of tells them what happens to Mrs. Stark. Twilly turns out to be helping her teacher, and they thought that he was going to kill her or something just because of his appearance. And Mrs. Stark is trying to save two baby panthers, and they don't really know that. Nick and Martin don't really know that. And the panthers cannot survive without their mother, and so they have to go on an adventure to try and find their mother and trying to bring the baby cubs back to the mom. And basically what Red Diamond Energy Corporation has to do with it is there was an arson in the Black Vine Swamp, and the police are trying to figure out who did it, and it turns out that they did it because they're trying to scare the panthers off of there so they can start drilling there illegally. So I'm going to read a page from the book. Listen up, people, she said. A small wildfire has sprung on the far edge of the swamp. Pretty common for this time of year. It'll probably burn out when it reaches this cypress mud, but there's no sense taking any chances. That's why we're cutting our field trip short and heading back to the school. Straight back to the school. Nick and Marta groaned. What if she makes us go to her class? I'm going to be sick again, all over the place. Pray for a flat tire on the way home, Nick said. He was disappointed because he hoped for another opportunity to see a panther or whatever that had darted into the suppressed shadows. However, a wildfire was nothing to fool it. If a strong wind kicked in, the blaze would race across the land faster than any human could possibly run. Please stay behind Mr. Neal, Miss Moffat, Mrs. Stark said. I'll be coming along in a minute. Libby dropped her medicine, so I'm going back into the woods to find it. She clapped loudly, so it sounded like a big paper bag popping. Nick was walking behind Marta, who was behind Graham, who was behind Mickey Maris, who was behind Rachel, who was behind Hector, the star of the soccer team. The students were in such a rush that they were stepping on each other's heels. When Nick knelt to retrieve his shoe that had been stepped on, he glanced back down the curving boardwalk just in time to see Mr. Stark in her straw hat and dragonfly glasses marching into the smoky swamp. He had no idea that she wouldn't be coming out. Next. I thought this book was one of the best books I've ever read, and I would recommend this to anybody who has read Carl Hyacin's book before, like Flesh, Food, and Chomp. And I would recommend this to anybody. It's not that long of a book, and it's not that hard to read. So, yeah, that was my book.